back in the day in philosophy, they used to say a test for a philosophy of life and for a society would be, if you administered this and this was the law of the land, this way of thinking, would it make society better or worse? Because they believed if it was true, it would make it better. If it was not true, it would make society worse. And if you could kind of calculate roughly that if everyone didn't believe in God, at least for the time being, society would be worse off because you don't believe there's a higher good that you're trying to achieve. You don't believe there's something after death that you're striving to do good in order to get there. You might do terrible things in private because who's going to see anyway, among many other things. I mean, you look at the worst atrocities against the human race in the last century. You look at Stalin, Mao, Nazi Germany, and you can say what you want about Hitler's Christian beliefs. He was not Christian at all. I've listened to documentaries. He was not Christian after he was baptized, when he's a little kid in the Catholic Church, I believe. But what they have in common is none of them believed that God was watching. And that's somewhat profound. It should at least give you pause. These worst crimes against humanity, the thing they had in common was they didn't believe God was watching them. They didn't believe that they would be judged later. And if you were a philosopher back in the day and you said, hey, if people think this way, what will society look like? And if you look at those examples, it's certainly not good. So I always say, believe in God or not, you ought to live, and a society ought to live as though he is real. And I think they'll be better for it until a better solution comes along. But I personally don't believe a better solution or better way of thinking will come along. So I'm agreeing with you.
Yeah, well, and you bring up a good point about our history, right? And the atrocities and them not believing that God is watching. There's one thing that really stuck with me in college, and I just can't even believe that I allowed for this to happen. I should have stood up and said something to the professor, but they pushed Karl Marx. They pushed his ideology, and I didn't know this, but I did a little research on Karl Marx, and he was just not a happy guy. He was covered in boils. He was just not happy, and his family was not happy. His family was on the brink. I think somebody committed suicide in his family, and he was just not a happy guy. Raging atheist, just spoke out against God all of the time. It was his dominant religion, and I just think you're so right when you say, just let it play out and see what happens. And that's the whole marketplace of ideas. What helps people and what makes people happy is inevitably, I believe that's going to rise to the top. Whether it's the truth or not, who knows? But let's just let society decide what we talk about, what we believe in, and then if everybody's happier, then what's the problem?